Welcome, everyone. This is Glenda Dawson, and you're watching Glenda's Dragon's Den. I just want to say thank you for everyone that's here every week, whether you watch us live or you watch us later. I really appreciate you. I really love that you have set the intention and given yourself this gift of hearing other perspectives and encouraging you to grow and open that box that you have been put in by society and breaking those walls down. Tonight we have a great person, wonderful lady. She has been on before, so you might recognize her, but you know how these things are. Every single time that we have somebody on again, it's like another layer of that onion. We just keep peeling back skin, layer of skin after layer, layer, until we get to the heart of things, until we get deeper and deeper. In every conversation, we have growth and different experiences. So, welcome, Sabina. How are you today?
Hi, Glenda. I'm good. How are you?
I am doing really good. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome back, and I appreciate the fact that you're back with us and to give us more on your experiences and, what is your views and your values and et cetera, et cetera. So,
It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
thank you.
Yeah.
So, for those that saw us before, they could, catch uh, who didn't see us before, they could catch some of the other shows. But tell me about you and how you got to this point in your life and about your spiritual life, your experiences.
Okay, well, basically, I grew up not being interested in anything spiritual. Although, as a small child, I remember that I was confused because I grew up in a home with a Muslim father, though he was an atheist. He didn't believe in God, but he came from a Muslim culture.
Hmm.
And my mother was from a Christian culture, and she never said whether she believed in God or not. The only thing she ever said was that she thought that Jesus of Nazareth was a good man and she liked what he taught. But that was about it. So I didn't have any kind of spirituality or religion around me as I was growing up. But as a small child, I recall that I was confused because of these two different religions. And I remember asking God, sort of the way you would as a small child, which is just inside your head, I guess.
Hmm.
And I asked God, like, well, what do I do about this? Like, am I supposed to choose one, and which one's the right one? For some reason, I think I already knew about elections or something. So I knew about this idea where you have to vote and choose one, you know? So I was kind of like, well, is this the same thing? Uh, and the answer I got that, what I heard inside of myself was, don't worry about it because I'm in all the religions, but I'm also outside of them. So you don't have to choose anything, because
Hmm.
I'm here everywhere kind of thing. And that was great because then I could just stop thinking about it and just carry on. And that's what I did. And I didn't think about religion or spirituality. I wasn't interested. And it was actually because I went through a personal crisis in my early 20s that I began to ask those questions that many of us do ask at some point. Why am I here? What is life about? What's all of this? How do I
Hmm.
understand it? And you might think, well, why didn't you ask those questions before? Well, I don't know. I just didn't. I was just going along like a little, I don't know, not a machine exactly, but I just kept doing things. And I wouldn't say I had been necessarily a very happy person, but I hadn't been a super unhappy person either. I had just been going along. And then the crisis kind of blew that apart. And suddenly I had this, oh my goodness, I don't understand what I'm doing here. So you
Hmm.
could call that a kind of awakening because I think part of awakening is suddenly realizing that you're here.
Hmm.
And that experience of suddenly realizing you're here causes you to look around and say, well, what is this place? And why am I here? And and what is it all about? Is there
Hmm.
something that I should be doing, or how do I understand it? And that was the beginning of asking those questions.
There must have been, that was the catalyst that got you to where you are right now. So that was the,
That's right.
but that is awakening moment. You know, people think awakening is like, oh, I just know suddenly things, and they don't realize it comes with a very good punch, and a lot of heartache, a lot of gut crunch, just in general, total, basically chaos in a way,
That's
because
right.
it throws your whole life completely array, and you're looking around and you're like, well, that relationship is not working out, this isn't working out, I have to move now, I got to do this, and it's like your whole world just collapses, um, or so you think, right? Or
That's
so
right.
you
Well,
think.
something has collapsed. I
Mhm,
don't know. I don't know if, you say your whole world, and it's true at the moment that it happens, that's how we experience it. It is our
mhm,
whole world.
mhm,
But now looking back on it, what I think it is that it's actually just the structure that we've created for ourselves, which is in that sense our whole world.
mhm,
But we don't realize that just as we created that structure, we can create something else.
mhm,
Uh, and it's really a blessing in disguise that these crises happen, because they are the opportunity. Because when that structure falls apart, it liberates us in a way that, as long as we're functioning within that structure, we're actually not free. Uh, we're
mhm.
free within it, but we don't have a greater freedom, that
Right.
goes beyond it. And so I do think crisis is a very powerful and positive thing. And when you understand it in that way, and you understand that structures, that is how we build our lives on planet Earth, because
Mhm,
we're living on the physical plane, and we're living not just on the physical plane, but we're living on the emotional plane and the mental plane, and on all of these planes we build structures,
mhm,
knowingly or not. It's not that we're consciously thinking, now I'm going to build a mental structure and then I'll live
mhm.
inside of it. But a belief system is a kind of mental structure, right?
Right, right. Hmm.
Yeah.
And even the emotional, some people close their hearts and they don't even realize it, because that's the way they have survived. So they have their emotions closed. They do a good act. They cry on cue. They cry when they think they're supposed to. They smile when they're supposed to. But inside, it's like kind of dead space, because in order to survive any trauma that they have come up and experienced, they um, they create that empty space so they don't have to feel it anymore. And so that's where the human experience kind of comes in.
That's right. Survival mechanisms, in
Hmm.
fact.
Hmm.
And I what I wanted to say is that I think that crisis and the kind of breakdown that we're talking about, and how it can release us from where we're being held back, or
Hmm.
as you're talking about, where there can be this emptiness and yet we can't address it. We have no access to getting to that,
Hmm.
to do something about it. We're just functioning around it, but it's there all the time. Well, a crisis and a breakdown is what gives you a new possibility, and you begin to be able to create something new and bring along with you all these aspects or things that before maybe were out of reach. You couldn't access them, you couldn't connect to them.
Hmm.
And just as we as individuals go through that, and we may go through something like that many times in a lifetime. I mean, it's not just one time. I mean, and I know there are people who never go through that. And as a young person, I used to kind of grumble and be envious and think, well, why can't I have a life like that? I want to have one of those lives, the ones where everything's perfect and they never have a crisis. But now I've understood that's not what it's about. That's a very consumerist way of looking at life, because
Hmm.
you're just looking at the outward appearance. You don't really know what a person's experiencing on the inside.
Right.
And so even though that it might look perfect, you have no idea what that person actually goes through. And so I guess what I wanted to say is that just as we as individuals go through crises and breakdowns, societies also do that. Civilizations do that. Uh, I hear a lot of people talking these days about sort of the end of the American domination system, or
Hmm.
they don't call it civilization, but empire maybe,
Hmm.
or hegemony, different words. But the idea that a structure can also exist at a macro level, not just within us
Right.
individually, so that our society, whatever it might be, is also a living organism in a way. It's growing and it's changing. And you can see that, of course, when you look around yourself, you can see that ideas that we held 40 years ago about the right way to raise children, many of those ideas have changed. And now people have different ideas about the right way to
Mm-hmm.
raise children, or the right way to teach children in schools, or the right way to have a conversation, things that we should
Mm-hmm.
be paying attention to that previously we didn't think about. So there are lots and lots of ways in which a society changes over time. And as you're living your life, it's imperceptible. It's very, very subtle and very gradual. You don't say from one day to the next, "Oh wow, look, suddenly I'm thinking in a different way." I mean, you might be on a personal level, but at the level of society, it doesn't seem to be changing because it's very, very slow. But if you look back in like like sections of time, like decades or centuries, then you can really see the changes.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I wanted to say is that I am of the opinion that we are going through a major crisis globally, like not just in one part of the world, but
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. There's crisis, and systems are breaking down. Social systems are breaking down, educational systems are breaking down, political systems are breaking down. And we're seeing all of that as a major crisis, and
Mm-hmm.
it's creating chaos for all of us in one way or another. It affects everybody. And the kind of spiritual understanding, excuse me, that I have about that is that these breakdowns are part of a major shift that our planet is going through, that it's at a global level, but that it's a spiritual change. And I know that that's hard to imagine, that something that we're seeing around us in economics, politics, education, all aspects of society,
Mm-hmm.
that would be something you would describe as being spiritual. I understand that's not usually the way we think about these things. But the information that I have says that as our solar system keeps moving through the heavens, it enters into an energetic relationship with a different constellation approximately every 2,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an astronomical fact. That is, it's a thing you can actually measure in if you look at the heavens, if you look at the
Right.
movement of different constellations. And people who study these things call it the precession of the equinoxes. And I don't know the technical aspects of it to be able to explain why it's called that. But what I do know is that our solar system has been entering into a closer and closer relationship energetically with the constellation of Aquarius
Mm-hmm.
since the year 1675. And prior to that, the constellation we were most closely connected to energetically was Pisces. So the energies of Pisces, of the constellation of Pisces, those energies were streaming into our planet and affecting us and stimulating all life. Now, this is where I find it interesting. It's an intersection between something that's purely a scientific fact, that is the movement of stars and planets, and what we call spiritual. But in this teaching, really, one of the fundamental messages is that everything is spiritual. This idea of spiritual as being somehow separate from, for example, science
Mm-hmm.
or politics or anything, this is something that the information I want to share with you says it's actually not true. Everything is spiritual in the sense that everything has consciousness and intelligence, and that there's a grand plan for everything, for all life, and we're part of it. And we also have this amazing consciousness and intelligence that we're in the process of awakening and becoming aware of. But how does it relate to the constellations? Well, every star, as you know, if you look at our sun, is emanating incredible energy all the time, nonstop. And so these energies are not only physical, like we can measure, the light and the heat, the radiance that comes from the sun. We have instruments that can measure that. But in addition to the physical level of that energy, according to this information and teaching, the energies coming out of a star also have spiritual qualities. That is, they have vibrations and frequencies that stimulate consciousness and stimulate life. So
Mm-hmm.
the energies of Pisces, the ways in which those energies stimulated us, human beings, was that they increased our capacity for devotion and also devotion's flip side, which is fanaticism, devotion to an ideal. They also stimulated our capacity to experience ourselves as individuals. And during the last 2,000 years, that growth in our experience of ourselves as individuals has been so successful that we now are very highly individualized. That is, all of us has a very, very strong sense of ourselves as an individual. Now, that's a very powerful thing, a very important thing, and it's something quite necessary in our evolution. So
Mm-hmm.
it's not that there's something wrong with it, it's that that was the stage we were going through then. But now what's happening is the energies of Aquarius are starting to flow into our solar system and all onto the Earth. And those energies stimulate the capacity for synthesis, which means putting different things together and coming up with something new.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you think about synthesizing a new chemical. So synthesis means that what we're going to be seeing, and we're already seeing it, is people coming together in groups to create something new that hasn't been there before. So we see all kinds of groups, networks, uh, collectives working together to improve life for
Mm-hmm.
each other, for people in general. And that is where we see our individuality working for the good, the greater good, the good of the group.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a very powerful change. And the other part of it is that as the energy of Pisces is receding and the energy of Aquarius is increasing,
Mm-hmm.
there is a kind of a clash because everything that we built in our society during the age of Pisces, all the structures that we built, our political structures, if you think about the way we do politics these days, we still have a structure in which there's one person at the top, the kind of leader, whoever it is. We call
Mm-hmm.
them a prime minister or president or chairman or whatever we give the name that we
Right.
give to them. But
Mm-hmm.
there's one person at the top, and then there are all the other people at different layers below.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Now that's how we've functioned politically for the last 2,000 or so years. We've worked in that way. It worked for us then, but more and more it's not working for us. And the biggest reason that I see is that all of us, the mass of people, the so-called regular people, we
Mm-hmm.
have grown so much in our awareness, in our intelligence, in our consciousness, that it doesn't make sense for us to just have blind faith in a leader. Because we have opinions, we have knowledge, we see what's happening. And
Mm-hmm.
so the way of the collective is actually much stronger. It's kind of like the idea of brainstorming. What is brainstorming? It's bringing lots of minds together to work on a problem.
Right.
And generally, you'll come up with a much better solution when you do it that way than if you try to figure it all out by yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. As a collective, when you do brainstorming, one person says something, it could stimulate a thought in you, or a thought in somebody else, and then you could slowly build on that and build on that and build on that. So it's basically what's happening now. Right now, the Earth in general and every living thing on Earth is actually going through, as I see it, a major awakening because
Yeah.
it's bringing up all the chaos and the rumbling and the earthquakes to shake everything, and then we will be then able to bring out and shed light on new things that work better for society as a whole, as it is stands now.
Yes. Yep. Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
And but notwithstanding what I was just saying about the shift from this idea of a leader
Right.
to the collective,
Mm-hmm.
it's still true, and so I think this is sometimes hard to reconcile, but there is still something naturally hierarchical
Mm-hmm.
in in life, and in that includes everything. So, for example, there are people who know more than other people. That's just a fact. And so sometimes people say, yeah, but if it's a democracy, we're all the same. Well, no, we're not actually all the same. We all have an equal voice. That's different, but we're not all the same. People have different abilities, different knowledge, different
Mhm.
experience. And just as, if you have a small child, you as a parent are going to take certain responsibility for the child because the child can't do it yet for themselves.
Mhm.
So that's very well understood. We all do that. That's just a natural response. But in the same way, if we talk about spirituality, I think it also makes sense that there are people who are more advanced spiritually. And so I want to talk about that because
Mhm.
as all of us go through our personal growth and evolution, part of the teaching that I want to share is reincarnation. That
Mhm.
is a fundamental cornerstone of this teaching. And
Right.
the idea is that we all live many, many, many times,
Mhm.
hundreds of thousands of times, because it takes time to grow and to learn. It's not something you can just do in a very short space of time. And so, this growth that we're all going through, we're going through it as souls in incarnation. Each of us is a
Mhm.
soul, a divine being, a spark of God, if you want to say it that way. And so everything that exists in God, and by God, what I mean is the intelligence and the power and the love that animates all life. That
Mhm.
is the source of all life. So it's not a person. It's something beyond any one person, but it's something that's so vast that we can only understand it at our own level. And I
Right.
think that makes sense. Each being is aware of it at their own level.
Mhm.
And so even one of the things that this great teacher Maitreya has said is that even the stone worships the Lord. That is to say, even a stone has consciousness on its own level.
Mhm.
So there's no, you can't say one thing, this level is more correct than that level. It's more that it's a vision of a greater part of the whole. So our ability to see keeps expanding. We keep being able to see more
Mhm.
of this incredible vastness. And so each of us are souls in incarnation. That's our identity. And in every lifetime, we start exactly where we left off the last time, according to the Ageless Wisdom. So nothing is ever lost. Everything we've learned, all the insight we've gained, all the understanding we've gained, also things like actual skills. For example, playing the violin. If you spent hours and hours practicing the violin in one lifetime, in the next lifetime, you'll be able to play the violin at the level you were at the last time
Mhm.
when
Mhm.
when you ended that last life. So everything is kept, everything is continued, and it's a process that goes on and on and on. It's an infinite process. But in terms of our planet, the Earth, there is a finite kind of end point in terms of what we learn on the Earth. So all of us are going through this process, but there does come a point at which we become masters over ourselves. That is, we no longer have sudden moments where we behave in ways that we think, wait a minute, what did I just do? Or what did I just say? I'm better than that. So all of those things, all the human things uh, that we think of as being stuff that we're trying to overcome, in
Mhm.
ourselves, all the reactions, all of that. Well, bit by bit, slowly over time, we keep learning, we keep growing, and more light, literally more and more light is entering into us and changing our physical body, not
Mhm.
just our mind. So, we have the word enlightenment, which has that word light in it. And so my understanding of enlightenment is it's literally a process of light entering us and changing the way we think, the way we respond emotionally, and also literally, according to this teaching, changing our physical body so that our molecules and our atoms, what make up our physical body, become light. The atoms become subatomic particles, photons. And
Mhm.
so as that process continues, there comes a point at which your entire body is light. And at that point, you are a master in the sense that you have complete mastery over yourself. And according to this teaching, those who reach that stage of mastery, then have the option that they don't need to continue to incarnate here as a human being. They can continue elsewhere. That is, they can go on to other planets, other solar systems, because this process of the evolution of consciousness is taking place throughout cosmos, not just
Mm-hmm.
here on our Earth. And so it's a huge vista, you know, it's enormous. But the reason I was talking about that is just to say there are differences in levels of awareness
Mm-hmm.
and of understanding. And so, in that sense, spiritually, it makes a lot of sense to look for a teacher or a guru or somebody who has more wisdom because they can really help us.
Right.
And I think we all do that naturally. We gravitate to where we find wisdom, where we find teaching that helps us.
Mm-hmm.
And so part of what I want to share today is about some of these teachers.
Mm-hmm. Please, please.
So that's something that I came, excuse me, water.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I came across, excuse me, that it came across without expecting to come across it. That is, I wasn't thinking to myself, I'm looking for a teacher.
Right.
But in the process of asking those questions, who am I? What am I doing? What is life? You know how it is, as you ask a question, doors open, you start meeting
Mm-hmm.
people, you start having experiences, one thing leads to another. So what I came into contact with was, the very first thing I came into contact with was this book, Messages from Maitreya the Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started reading these messages and also reading about who is Maitreya. So what I learned was that our planet has a spiritual hierarchy. And so here I'm using the word hierarchy. So these are masters of wisdom, people who have reached that stage where they don't need to incarnate anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but they choose to stay here to help the rest of us. And they help not just humanity, but all the different kingdoms of life.
Mm-hmm.
So their job in a way is to make sure that we don't go completely off course.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure they have their hands full right now.
Oh yeah, they're taking turns. Okay, who's gonna
Exactly.
who's gonna get that short stick?
That's right.
So, and having probably a lot of drinks.
Yeah. And we actually know about them down through history. We have heard many of the names of these masters. For
Mhm.
example, Jesus, for one, who is very well known,
Right.
especially in the Western world, but all over the world. So Jesus of Nazareth is one of these masters.
Mhm.
The Buddha, though he's even at a higher level. And then, for example, Krishna, Rama. We've
Mhm.
heard of many, many names. These are people who are actually regular people like ourselves, but they've just continued evolving. They've gotten far beyond where we are, and they are now masters of wisdom. So, this group of masters uh, are working from behind the scenes, and every time there's a change of age, that is every 2000 or so years, as we shift into an energetic relationship with a different constellation,
Mhm.
it's always a time of crisis and chaos because of these major changes that take place.
Right.
One system is collapsing, a new one is struggling to be born. And so, always at that time, a great teacher, one of the masters, comes forward into public view and to give teaching and to help all of us to go through the change, to make it through the change with the least, I guess, the least anguish possible.
Mhm.
And
Right.
so the teacher for the last change of age was Jesus, and that was 2,000 years ago at the beginning of the age of Pisces. The teacher for this age is Maitreya. Now, on this book, it says Maitreya the Christ. And so, especially if you're a Christian, you'll be thinking, no, wait a minute, Jesus is the Christ. What do you mean, Maitreya the Christ? So, this esoteric teaching, which we call the Ageless Wisdom, says that, in fact, the word Christ refers to a position, a job, a post within the spiritual hierarchy. And that job right now is held by Maitreya. His personal name is Maitreya, like my name's Sabina or your name
Right.
is Glenda. So that's why right now he is Maitreya the Christ. And Jesus is a disciple of Maitreya's, and they work together very closely. And during the lifetime when Jesus was in Nazareth and gave the teachings that we know as the New Testament,
Mm-hmm.
in the last 3 years of his life, he was being overshadowed by Maitreya. And what that means is that an overshadowing is when a greater consciousness, someone whose consciousness is more expanded,
Mm-hmm.
works through someone whose consciousness is not quite at that same state. And in an overshadowing, this is done with the full conscious agreement and acceptance of the person who is having that happen through them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like a channeling where a person who is having some consciousness come through them will be unconscious at the time and won't have a recollection of it. Now, there may be other types of channeling I don't know about. That's the one type I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm.
But in overshadowing, it's like an agreement between the two people. And
Mm-hmm.
so during the last 3 years of his life, Jesus was overshadowed by Maitreya, and it was during those 3 years that he performed the miracles that we know about. And in fact, it was Maitreya who was performing the miracles, but doing all of that through Jesus. So that's the explanation of why this book says Maitreya the Christ.
Right.
Now, these messages were transmitted through a disciple, not of Maitreya, but of one of the other masters of wisdom. And that disciple's name was Benjamin Creme, who only recently passed away 10 years ago. And he was a Scottish artist, author, lecturer, and he was the editor of Share International magazine. And there is a website which we'll share and you'll put below the show,
Mm-hmm.
right, Glenda?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, in the description. Definitely.
So he was a disciple of one of the masters of wisdom, and he, during a particular period of time, he used to give talks. He lived in London, and he used to give talks at a place called Friends House, a Quaker meeting house. And during a period of years, he was overshadowed by Maitreya during those meetings, and Maitreya would give him these messages. And so that is how we have these 140 messages. And the very first one was transmitted through Benjamin Creme in 1977. And the
Mm.
last one, let me see, when was the last one transmitted? 1982. So basically, it was a period of about 5 years. And so, what I'd like to do just right off the bat is just read an excerpt from one of them, because talking about the chaos that we're going through and all of the
Mm-hmm.
change, I want to read this because I think it can be considered a very hopeful messages. So what Maitreya says in this message, and it's number 130, which he transmitted on October 20th, 1981. And he says, "My dear friends, I am happy indeed to be with you once again in this fashion. All goes well, augurs well for the future. My plans proceed apace and galvanize mankind. Wherever you may look in the world today, you will find change. From top to bottom, the fabric of the old and decaying order is rent. From this can we derive much satisfaction, for despite the pain involved in this process, a new and better world emerges. Therefore, my friends, take comfort from this fact and look to the future with hope." So basically, he's saying what we've just been saying, which is that everything is being torn apart. Everything that
Mm-hmm.
has worked for us until now. Uh, and then the other thing I want to read here is from another one, message 128, given a week earlier, where he says, uh, "Many today realize that the way to the future is through a new and just order, a new brotherhood of man, a new spirit of cooperation between old enemies. All this is possible today and is being effected." And then he continues, "My friends, within you all is the power of truth." And this is something that he emphasizes many times. He talks about how we are, in fact, gods if we but realize it. And he says that within you lies all of this infinite intelligence, love, wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
He says um, in another message, number 82, "My task will be to show you how to live together peacefully as brothers. This is simpler than you imagine, my friends, for it requires only the acceptance of sharing. Sharing, indeed, is divine. It underlies all progress for man. By its means, my brothers and sisters, you can come into correct relationship with God, and this, my friends, underlies your lives. When you share, you recognize God in your brother. Now, I love that sentence. When you
Mm,
share, recognize God in your brother or your
mm,
sister. Because basically, he's saying when you share, what you're recognizing is that the other person has exactly the same needs as yourself
yep.
and is the same as yourself on a very fundamental level.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah, I love that.
Beautiful.
So, yeah, so sharing is the very most basic message that the masters are wanting to give us, to tell us in terms of how do we solve our problems. Their response is by sharing,
Mm,
and that in fact it's the only way, and it's the only thing that hasn't actually been tried, in the sense that by sharing they don't mean that I should empty my bank account and distribute it, around me. They're
right.
talking about sharing at the level of the countries of the world, the nations of the world, that every nation would look at all the excess that it has, that it doesn't need, and then all of that would be put into a fund, a
Mm-hmm.
kind of common fund, and from that we would share to the nations that don't have what they need. That would be the first stage of sharing.
Right.
But down the road, it'll be quite different. And this is something I also want to talk about, is these predictions for how our world will be in the future. Basically, the biggest change will be a complete change in our economic system. And
Mm-hmm.
what we will have instead will be a rational and sustainable economic structure based on sufficiency, rather than excess. That will become the norm. Cooperation will replace competition. There will be a phased, gradual transfer of resources from military to civilian production, which will provide useful work for many. And I think this is the most important thing, at least as I see it: the blind following of market forces, whose myopic rule causes such misery today, now I'm reading from a text, will
Mm-hmm.
give way to an enlightened and just consideration for the needs of all. So that idea that our economy would recognize that all of us have needs which have legitimacy, that there
Mm-hmm.
is, it's not that there's one group of people whose needs count for more
Right.
than somebody else. We're all equally deserving of what we need in order to
Mm-hmm.
live. Uh, and that is a recognition of humanity's oneness, of the fact that we're all fundamentally the same on our inner level. We
Mm-hmm.
all have the same, even at a physical level, everybody has the same organs. It's not like some people have some kind of organ and others don't. No, we're
Right.
identical.
Right.
you know. And so that recognition of our oneness is
Mm-hmm.
extremely important. It's kind of the underpinning for all these changes that they're talking about, the changes in the way we do our economy, the changes in the way we organize our lives. So, for example, another thing, we won't have barriers anymore to people being able to travel from one country to another. We won't need passports. Because what is a passport really? It's a way to say, I have rights in this particular area, but
Mm-hmm.
outside that area, I'm like, oh no, you know, uh, what, where do I belong? So
Right.
the idea will be that we all belong to the whole planet, not just to one portion of the planet. Uh, so, and there will be a change. We won't have extremes in the way we do now, because
Right.
people will have a recognition of their connectedness and mutuality, cooperation. These will be the ways in which we will proceed, and the ways in which we'll build the new kind of structures, the new societies. And just some of these predictions are very, I think, very comforting to think about. So this is about living conditions. How will our lives actually be? And
Right.
so some of this is from what Benjamin Creme has said. He says we will enter an era of tranquility and peace in exact proportion to the present discord. So as crazy and chaotic and even violent as things are now, to that degree, things will be peaceful. We will have true peace. The violence and hatred of today will be transmuted into goodwill. And goodwill is really the most fundamental level of the energy of love.
Mm-hmm.
And the teaching of the Ageless Wisdom says that in our universe, uh, in our solar system, God is love. We live in a solar system in which that energy of love is represented by what we call God. So the highest level, sort of,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we aspire to, is to
Right.
demonstrate that energy in our lives. So goodwill, wishing good to others, is a manifestation of the energy of love. And in fact, all the religions of the world tell us in their own ways that this is what we should be doing. You know,
Mm-hmm.
treat others as you would have them treat you,
Right.
or do not do to others what you do not want them to do to you. You know, it's a
Exactly.
very, very basic level of understanding goodwill. And of course, you can actually say that the sort of the minimum level of goodwill would be harmlessness, trying
Mm-hmm.
to do harm.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
that in itself is a great achievement. I mean, probably most of us do commit harm without realizing it, you know, all the
Mm-hmm.
time, not intentionally, but
Mm.
without being aware of it.
Right.
Uh, but most people try all the time to not do harm. And the vast majority of people are living very positive lives every day, striving to do the things they know they want to do, that need to be done, to
Mm-hmm.
do right by each other. That's why society functions. That's why it works, because
Mm-hmm.
we all make that effort every single day. Uh, Most people don't get up in the morning and think, how can I screw things up for somebody? You know, uh, that's not what we do. We get up in
Right.
the morning.
Yeah, I can see that. No, no, no. But it is true. Most of us don't get up and do that. That's very true. Very true. It's unfortunately that little percentage just sometimes throws a monkey wrench in the works.
That's
But
true. But the rest of us are doing something else. And, you
right,
know, over time, we're the majority, in fact.
right,
So
exactly.
little by little, I know that this doesn't seem true right now. If you look at the world and the news, it doesn't seem true. But there's an organization, I think in Sweden, that keeps track of how many armed conflicts there are around the world.
Mm.
And they've been tracking this since, I think, since after World War II. And the number of armed conflicts around the world keeps decreasing. Now, I know if you look at the headlines, it doesn't look like it right now.
Right,
Uh,
right.
but but that is in fact a statistic, and you can look it up online, and there are many other measures that show that things are getting better. For example, the number of people who live in poverty, in absolute poverty, has dropped over the period since World War II. That's a major change for millions and millions of people.
Mm-hmm.
So we are in fact doing well in terms of improving people's lives, like on the ground.
Mm.
So here are some more predictions. A new livingness will characterize our relationships and institutions. A new freedom and sense of joy will replace the present fear. The family will gain, not lose importance as the basic unit of society. And I think, excuse me, more and more we do realize what an important role the family plays.
Mm-hmm.
People say hurt people, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yep,
something that has become a very sort of standard understanding.
yep.
Uh, so where do those hurt people come from? Well, very often it's childhood, it's
Mm-hmm.
family, not because anyone was being deliberately mean. Sometimes people are, but in many cases it's simply through lack of understanding, or because the people who are the parents are themselves hurt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there's cycles of this that go on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So just to know that we will begin to focus on the family, and we're already starting to. I mean, you can see that in many
Yes.
ways. Our societies have understood that that's kind of the root of everything. That's where things start,
Mm.
and how can we work with people to help people so that that's not going to be so destructive. How can we make it better, basically?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and along those lines, a new science, the psychology of the soul, will be the basis of all future educational efforts and will transform life for both the child and the teacher. Now, this, the soul, right now, science does not accept the existence of the soul. It doesn't, if you want to put it like that, believe in the soul. So if you
Mm-hmm.
talk about the soul, if you use the word soul, people think you're talking about something religious or spiritual, but
Mm-hmm.
not a fact, like the
Right.
way science says, gravity is a fact. Uh, Now, the predictions that Benjamin Creme has given us, and all of this information comes from his master, one of the masters of wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the predictions is that the soul will be proven to exist by scientists in France. That's going to take place once the soul has been proven, like once it has been sort of understood that that's a real thing, really exists.
Mm-hmm.
Then so many things will change. So one of the things that will change here, this is a description that there will be a new science called the psychology of the soul. That is going to change everything because then you'll look at each other, and specifically in the case of children, you'll look at a
Mm-hmm.
child as an incarnating soul who has a mission in this life and also comes with a lot of gifts and maybe also challenges. And so all of that will color the way that we educate children and the way we create our educational systems and structures.
That's very true. Yes. Yes, I do know. I have read a few articles where scientists have tried to prove the soul that does
Oh,
exist. They're in that
really?
process right now. Yes. So I'm very excited to uh, get to read their final findings because they're in the process right now of doing the experiments. I should say that. And
That's wow.
the whole they're using part of AI to do the formulas to help them come up with the way to prove it scientifically.
Uh-huh.
So
Wow.
it's very interesting, but it's
Yeah.
in the process now. So I'm like, hey, finally, science and spirituality combined. This is good. The way it should
This
be,
is,
because one
yeah.
cannot really exist without the other one.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
So true. Yeah.
but they put it in little boxes and they put each thing in different boxes, and that's how society has been able to function. And this is the time of bringing down those walls, breaking down those boxes, and just letting all the information travel from soul to soul, person to person, living being to living being, and you find the common ground and unite. It's the way I
Yeah.
see it. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I would have to agree. And I mean, science has been a major, major source of advancement for all of humanity. If you
mm-hmm,
just think about modern medicine and so many things that have things that we now understand. For example, electricity, we don't think it's a magical, mystical thing anymore.
right.
We understand what it is. Our telecommunications, our, the whole computer world, the world
Mm-hmm,
of that. All of that is something that has come about through science. But it's clear that, as you say, we need to bring them together because we need to make sure that all of our discoveries are used for the greater good,
mm-hmm,
that we don't just allow things to go rogue, and
mm-hmm.
yeah, that's pretty important. Yeah.
Yes, very. If we want to survive, definitely have
Exactly.
to. We want to be able to manage everything, to
Well,
bring
and
it to awareness.
one of the predictions here is about technology, that there will be a new technology called the technology of light, which will allow us to have an infinite amount of energy at no cost.
Mm.
However, that technology won't be made available to us. That is, our scientists won't be able to discover it until we renounce war forever. Um, because it's something that if we didn't renounce war forever, then someone could use it in a destructive way.
Right.
But once we have that technology, physicists will discover how to control matter,
Mm-hmm.
distance, and time, and how to neutralize toxic waste and stockpiles of nuclear weapons. And so, I mean, our lives are really going to change.
Right.
Uh, Transportation systems will be devised which will be so silent, so apparently motionless, that travel fatigue will completely disappear. Um, by the end of this century, we will build structures with the scientific use of sound. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so, just these are wonderful things to read about. All of this information is available on the Share International website.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Benjamin Kem wrote about 17 books, and the information is given in greater detail there. On the website, you can find links for if you want to buy those books, but you can also download 4 of them free as PDFs.
Okay.
So there's a lot of information available.
Very good. Very good. And everyone, the all the links are going to be in the description. So you don't have to rush and write and all this other stuff or what was that? You could just look at it in
Yeah,
the well, I'm one that gets so enticing what the people are sharing that I'm like, okay, I can't remember it. By the time the show ends, it's like, what did they say? So I focus on what's actually being said at that moment. So
yeah.
a lot of people do that, which is good. It's good. It opens up their minds. So anything else that we haven't talked about that you would like to share?
Yes, one more thing, and that is meditation.
Mm-hmm.
So what the masters say is the quickest way to speed up your growth.
Mm-hmm.
It is 2 things: service and meditation. Those 2 things are the fast way to evolve.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, many of us, probably most of us, are involved in some form of service every day. You know,
Mm-hmm.
as we go about our lives, as we do our jobs, service is part of it. Many people also do meditation. And what I wanted to share is a specific kind of meditation that Benjamin Creme introduced called transmission. It's a group meditation. 3 people or more make up a group because this is based on the science of triangles.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a meditation that involves basically allowing the masters to send very, very high potency spiritual energies through the chakras of the group members. So when we do this meditation, we gather together either physically in a specific place at a regular time, like 7 o'clock every Monday night,
Mm-hmm.
or since the pandemic, people are doing it using Zoom. So people are also connecting on Zoom and doing this group meditation. And how we start is we say the Great Invocation together. The Great Invocation is a mantra, and it may be well known by many of your listeners.
Mm-hmm.
I'll just start reading it. It has 4 stanzas. The first stanza says, and since it is an invocation, it is calling for light, love, and will. So it says, from the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth. The next stanza is from the point of love within the heart of God. Let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. And that sentence, may Christ return to earth, refers to Maitreya, the Christ. That is, that he is here now already,
Mm-hmm.
but he's not announced himself publicly. So the great invocation is basically saying that the love within the heart of God is embodied by this great being, Maitreya, the Christ. So his return to earth is the love of God uh, returning in a way to earth. But
Mm-hmm.
it's also the growth of the Christ principle within each of us, uh, Christ consciousness,
Mm-hmm.
that experience of love in our hearts. And then it continues to talk about the will of God and excuse me, also us, humanity, that from the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Now, that part about sealing the door where evil dwells, sometimes people think, oh, that sounds a bit scary. But what it's really referring to is that as we keep growing in consciousness, we will raise our level of awareness, where
Mm-hmm.
our awareness, the level where our awareness is habitually seated, that is, in our
Mm-hmm.
daily life, where our awareness is. We're going to be raising it gradually more and more until it's above the level where we can be manipulated by fear. And that's what the reference is to, where it says the door where evil dwells. The evil is simply manipulating people with fear, using
Mm-hmm.
fear against somebody. That's what the word evil refers to there. Because it has been used and continues to be used as a major kind of form of
Mm-hmm.
manipulation.
Mm-hmm.
So after we say the great invocation together, then we sit in silence. We put our attention on our ajna center, which is the
Mm-hmm.
chakra right here between the eyebrows,
Mm-hmm.
and many people will feel the energies flow. Some people don't feel anything, but they still are there experiencing this sense, I need to be here right now.
Right. Right.
So the energies flow, they enter uh, through your ajna center, excuse me, and they go through your chakras, and then they flow out of your chakras. So it's not that you get filled up, it's rather that you are a place where the energy goes through. And as the energy goes through you, it is automatically lowered in frequency, because when it enters you, it's at a very high frequency, such a high frequency that if it weren't for the masters, you wouldn't be able to absorb it.
Right.
And so
Okay.
that's how this particular meditation also functions as a form of service, because by allowing these energies to flow through us, we are actually transforming or stepping down the energies to a lower vibration where they can be absorbed by us, people, normal people.
Right.
So when we do this meditation, we're helping the masters because we're making a certain quantity of this very potent spiritual energy, we're making it available to humanity. Now, we don't send the energy anywhere, the masters do that, but by allowing it to go through our chakras, we're helping them because we're allowing a certain quantity to become absorbable, if you will. I don't know if that's a word, but
I
absorbable.
think it is.
Yeah.
It sounds
And
okay.
it sounds okay. It kind of makes sense.
It kind
Yeah.
of makes sense.
And
Mm-hmm.
so we sit and do it for an hour, 2 hours, whatever however long you want to do it. It's no one is obliged to stay for longer than they want to.
Right.
So transmission groups are always open ended. You start and then you leave whenever it's the right time for you to leave. And this meditation, of course, because the energies are of such a high vibration, they will have an enormous impact on you, the practitioner, as well. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
they will help you grow in awareness and understanding.
Hmm.
And then, just to kind of finish off, I want to say that, this process of the emergence of Maitreya and the Masters of Wisdom into our everyday world, it's a process that has already begun. It's taking place now. Maitreya is already in the world. He has not announced himself publicly. And there are already 14 masters who have come forward from where they usually live, which is in places very removed from us, in the high mountains or in the deserts. And so there are already 14 of them now living in different cities in the world, in physical bodies, in London, Rome, Darjeeling, Tokyo, Geneva, Moscow, New York, and Madrid. There may be other cities that we don't know about.
Mm-hmm.
And they are going to be helping us in this coming time to build a new way of living, a new way of doing everything. And they will give suggestions in every aspect of life, including religion, science, finance, government, politics, healthcare, education, etc. And so it's a major kind of shift. And that's why I think the chaos that we see around us looks so total, because it is,
Mm-hmm.
in fact, it is total. And just to finish off, I want to read this couple of sentences from another message. from Maitreya, message number 96. He says, all man's structures must shine with the divine light. All man's ways of thought must reveal the God within. This truth, my friends, is at the basis of change. So, what I understand from this is when he says all man's structures must shine with the divine light, he's saying basically all our structures, meaning our political structures, our economic structures, everything has to be having that light of God, that divine intelligence, love, all those qualities have to be coming through those structures. That the structures have to express those energies. And so if we look at our politics, excuse me, or well, any system right now, we'll see varying degrees of that, but not really enough in any way, shape, or form,
Mm.
especially in some areas like politics and economics, where we see really oppression a lot of the time, and domination. And so, also, all man's ways of thought must reveal the God within. In other words, we ourselves will be expressing that energy of what we call God, that divine light and love. That's going to be coming through all of us more and more. I mean, it already is coming through each of us because that's who we are.
Right.
That's our essential nature. But it's going to continue to expand. So I guess what I want to say is have hope. Things are getting better, though we can't necessarily see it right now.
Right, right. But it's like everything, structure has to come down in order to rebuild, right?
That's right.
So,
That's right. In fact, he even says that in one of these messages about, and I think it's in the Bible in the New Testament. I think Jesus said this as well. Uh, he says the old bottles must be broken. The new wine deserves better. Right?
hmm yep,
Yeah.
yep. So, well, I want to say thank you for being here. This was great, and I'm sure it's going to be eye-opening to many, and even not surprising to a whole bunch of other people, because
Exactly.
they will
Yes.
it will just resonate with them, and they will feel uh, hopeful, and also be able to open up more as to the way they are and what they feel and how all that, just to be more of service and be more open and try to show others what it's more about. So give them hope and peace, hopefully. So,
That's really important. I agree. And the thing is, even if you can't join a transmission group or create a
hmm
transmission group, everyone can do like a little 15-minute meditation every morning or at some point during the day.
hmm
Just focus on your ajna center, this chakra
hmm
here, and think. Don't say it with your voice, just think it, because thought is a much higher vibration than
hmm
sound. So just think the mantra Om. That's also what we do in transmission. We think Om when we notice our attention has gone away from the ajna. So
right.
you can do that at home. You can just do that for, 10 to 15 minutes. Just think Om, and you don't have to picture anything in particular, or you don't have to expect any great vision or inspiration, but
hmm
just take whatever comes up, and accept it. It's a very personal thing, and that's something that each of us can do, and it can make a huge difference.
Definitely can. Definitely can.
Yeah.
So thank you again. Thank
Thank
you
you,
to
Glenda.
everyone who's here and everyone who sees this later. Please do your service and share this so that others can also benefit from what was spoken about today and bring them some knowledge or some awareness, maybe even some peace. And as always, see you next Wednesday at 9 p.m. and love you. Bye.
Bye.